live. Start whenever you like.
Awesome. Hi, welcome back to A Con's Guide to Peace Season 2. We're working on rom-cons. Today we're going to talk about, I don't know if you guys have seen this, Dirty John and the outdated genetic coding. That's my theory. And we're going to work it through this episode. So if you haven't seen it, there is a series on Netflix, not a documentary, a series, but there's a podcast called Dirty John. The series is based off of that, of course. It's a true story. You can get caught up there. I summarize here. I tell you, like, the overall, events, and then explain my theory of the outdated genetic coding that I think played a part in all of this. So if you want a fuller idea, and it's really very good. I hate to say good about something so violent and awful. I'm saying that it's told well in the podcast. They did a good job. So if you want a more fuller, in-depth breakdown of what happened, I would recommend that. But anyway, okay, so welcome back. The show where we explore romantic catastrophes so intense they make you want to put your phone on airplane mode for the emotional safety. I've always been a true crime gal, especially fascinated with romantic scams. Give me a nice catfish scandal, and I am sat in sobriety. I wrote a book called A Con's Guide to Peace that I've yet to release. It'll come in 2026. Truthfully, it started out as a journal with over 300 pages of rambling where I just wrote my thoughts down. But when those pages got looked over and I worked on it some more with intentions, there was a book there. And one of the chapters addresses what I call the outdated genetic coding in both men and women that plays out in bizarre ways today. While this podcast was created as a companion to me in sobriety and now to you, if you're sober or trying to get sober, cool, glad you're here. If you're just into the podcast, true crime podcast, or the catfish scams, you're also super welcome, because that's so what I'm into right now. And it kept me company in that time. It still does. Anyway, it was intended as a support system to those in pursuit of sobriety. This is very much a part of my sober journey and still is, even though I'm almost 3 years sober. I hope to be a part of your journey by keeping your mind occupied if you are indeed in pursuit of sobriety and entertained with these what the actual fuck stories, because I am. Today's episode is going to be different because we're not just telling the story of Dirty John, the con man, the charmer, the human dumpster fire and scrubs. We're also exploring why Deborah, a wildly successful woman with wealth and independence, still fell under his spell. Meaning, in spite of her being a very intelligent and highly successful woman. I mean, she was a millionaire running $1 million business. So, you feel like that includes being able to read people and how to manage people and all that stuff. And then by contrast, when you see what happened to her, you're like, help me make it make sense. So I'm here to offer a theory because I had to think about it a lot in sobriety, where I was very alone, away from everybody. I had a lot of time to think. So to help understand, we'll be bringing in that theory, a fascinating evolutionary hypothesis about the outdated genetic coding in women that once helped us survive, but now can get us into a whole lot of trouble. All right, seatbelts, emotional helmets, let's begin. Meet Dirty John, the discount villain. Okay, so John Meehan, a man who walked into life looking like House MD, but behaving like house arrests. He had a chaotic childhood, a criminal track record, and more lies than a politician in election season. That's saying a lot. He learned early that charm plus manipulation equals access. Access to money, to women, to sympathy, to drugs, whatever he wanted. John's entire adult life was one long rerun of who can I use next? And unfortunately, the answer soon became Deborah. Deborah, wealthy, smart, and still human.
Ew, I don't get it.
It was so awful. But anyway, hope you're not a sensitive listener. So, Deborah Newell had her life together. It's on airplane mode. Somebody just messaged me. Sorry. Okay, back to... Holy crap. How do I do this? How do I turn this off? How do I put this on airplane mode?
I just muted it.
Oh, fantastic. You guys, should we try again? Okay, enter Deborah. who had her life together in ways most of us can only dream of. She was successful, self-made, optimistic, kind-hearted, and yes, looking for companionship. Then John appears wearing his knockoff Dr. Scrubs like they came from the manipulation menswear section at Kohl's. He love bombs her. He mirrors her. He tells her everything she wants to hear. Deborah's flattered. She's hopeful. Deborah's charmed. Her daughters, however, they take one look at him and immediately hear the soundtrack from Jaws. But Deborah marries him anyway. And here's where we introduce the theory that helps explain it. Okay, so the outdated genetic coding, which what this whole season is about that. Let's pause the story for a moment and bring in something that might help us make sense of her choices. The hypothesis, my hypothesis, we'll call it exactly that, that says that women may carry an archaic genetic survival script, one written thousands of years ago when a woman's safety depended on entirely almost on being attached to a man. Back then, being partnerless wasn't sad, it was dangerous. No protection, no shelter, no resources, no survival, right? So the brain evolved a warning system, an ancient alarm that screamed, stay with the man, appease the man, don't lose the man, your life depends on maintaining this partnership. Even though that's not true anymore, it is in some parts of the world. I don't want to sound naive. The wiring doesn't always know that. That wiring doesn't understand that. So in modern times, this outdated alarm can show up as staying with harmful partners, minimizing red flags, fearing abandonment, pleasing men at the expense of oneself, or even sacrificing loved ones to maintain relationship dynamic. It's not weakness, it's not stupidity, it's an ancient survival reflex misfiring in a modern world. And in Deborah's story, we see it everywhere. How Deborah's wiring was reinforced by her family history. Here's where the theory becomes even more chilling. Okay. Deborah didn't just inherit coding biologically, she also grew up watching it in action. Her mother famously testified in support of her son-in-law after he murdered her daughter. So Deborah's sister was murdered by her husband. And then Deborah's mother testified in favor of the son in his murder trial. There's forgiveness, and then there's just, well, yeah, let that sink in. A woman siding with a violent man over her own child, that is not poor judgment. It's generational conditioning so deep it practically echoes. To Deborah, men weren't just partners. They were the final authority, the center of gravity, the unquestionable leaders of the emotional universe. So when John appears, even though she's successful, wealthy, capable, meaning she basically doesn't need a man unless she wants one, and today's world allows her this freedom, old code fires up. Keep the man, please the man, secure the bond, question everything except him. Okay. Her independence couldn't override thousands of years of inherited survival impulses, especially ones that she saw modeled by the matriarch of her family. Meaning the example I just gave you, that the mother testified. Yeah, you get it. So the cracks and the code takes over. So Deborah marries John after 2 months. She overlooks the lies. She ignores her daughter's very loud, very accurate screaming instincts. Because the coding is whispering, you're safer with the man than without him. Even when he isolates her, manipulates her, steals from her, damages her relationships, and emotionally terrorizes her, the ancient alarm keeps blaring the wrong message. The outdated message women once needed for survival. This wasn't, I'm saying it's lagging. I'm saying it's late. Losing him will destroy your life is still the alarm. And in the process, she sacrifices her children emotionally, not maliciously, but reflexively, as millions of women have done before her when that survival script takes over. The code breaker. Who's Jacqueline? Okay. Deborah's daughter, Jacqueline, is the first woman in this family whose survival didn't depend on a man. Financially, socially, culturally, she's free. Now, granted, this is because Deborah, her mother, free. She is, quote unquote, the man, or whatever the man represents, right? And that's why she has that freedom. But even so, she's not able to override her coding, and Jacqueline is, thanks to Deborah. So it's a bit of a circle there. But anyway, it means the old code isn't activated in her because a man didn't secure her, a woman did. She sees John clearly from the start. She rejects him immediately. She challenges him, pushes back, refuses to be intimidated. Jacqueline is evolutionary progress embodied. She is the first in her bloodline to say this man is unsafe and owe him nothing. So she's the turning point, the moment that the generational spell actually cracks in this family. So the final battle, Tara takes down the predator. Tara is her other daughter, Deborah's other daughter, who becomes the literal warrior of the story. Now, in the podcasts, or if you see interviews with them, Tara is timid. Tara is actually rather on the quiet side. You would, if you had not known more details of the story, meaning that Jacqueline was a defiant one. Jacqueline was the one that was like, there's something wrong with this guy. I'm very outspoken about it. You would have thought it was Jacqueline that takes down John, not Tara, who was just trying to accommodate her family, even as it was being put through the stressors that John and his presence was causing it. When John attacks her in a parking lot, Tara doesn't freeze. She doesn't submit. She doesn't appease the man's script that John expects. She fights. She survives. She ends the threat permanently. In a moment of complete terror, she becomes living proof that the outdated code isn't destiny. It can be overcome. It can be rewritten. Tara isn't just a survivor. She's an evolutionary counterattack. And I think that is maybe its own episode because, again, she is very outspoken. Like I said, she doesn't like the guy, but she wasn't launching a war like Jacqueline was. There was a campaign, right? Like anytime John was present, Jacqueline made sure he knew that they had a problem. There was no like, let's be pleasant because the family's here. She was actively unkind to him. And I praise her for it. I mean, I love that for her. I just mean that she was the counter. What you would have thought would have been the counter. And I just love that it was Tara. But anyway, after John's death, Deborah rebuilds her life with clearer eyes. Her daughters heal. And the world learns the story and learns that even brilliant, successful, independent women can fall prey to outdated survival instincts buried deep inside us. The point isn't to judge Deborah. The point is to understand her. And through this theory, we see how biology, evolution, generational conditioning collided inside her life in the exact wrong moment with the exact wrong man. Now, I'm not saying you have to adopt this theory, but you have to admit it does have legs, don't you think? And only because, excuse me, I feel like this has answered so many questions for me because I had to sit and analyze all these feelings of frustration towards the women, even though it's the men doing the harm, right? And it's almost like I'm like, yeah, right, of course the man, but what the fuck when you talk about like Deborah or even Tara until the very end. Even though I got mad that she didn't support her sister, Jacqueline, who was like, no, fuck John, fuck him. I don't like him. I don't want him to come to anything. I don't want to say hi to him. I don't want to say bye to him. Like, she was just, this isn't happening. Tara's, like, reluctance to be combative to him also bothered me. And I was beyond pissed at Deborah. I was just like, well, this is a lost fucking case over here. I don't understand this at all. They were such a mismatch in the sense that within 2 months, he was driving her car. He had his hands on her savings. This woman is an attractive Southern belle who was a millionaire at 50. Like, you had your pick of men. Why were you submitting to this guy? Yes, he was smart and clever and all these things, and like that could be hard, granted. And I have my own examples and experiences where I've submitted to men that I just now go, wow, that was special. But how at that age? And I think I needed to understand where all that anger was coming from. Because I'm a girl's girl in that regard. Like, it takes a lot. It's very hard for me to have a problem with a woman and be comfortable not understanding why. And I wasn't comfortable. So like I said, I had all this time in sobriety, where I was spending time by myself because I just, my circle had to change, and all I did was read and listen to podcasts. And I was like, I want to go beyond just sitting and being frustrated at this woman. And I need to find words for why. When I developed this theory, it fit with all these documentaries and these situations where it was such a mismatch with these very smart, successful women and these low accomplished, low level, just slum, like dirty, awful men, that somehow they were still finding a path to these women. Not only a path, they were hijacking their whole life. And I was like, shit, I think maybe that alarm is like, it's I think it's a real thing. I mean, I know I feel like it's a real thing because I developed it, but like, apply it to your own life and tell me it doesn't make sense. Do you know what I mean? Because if you can't be that smart in everything in life and just that stupid when it comes to a partner. Love doesn't. Well, I also think the idea of love is mental illness. If you've seen season 1 of this podcast, so go back to that if you'd like me to elaborate on that. But like, I think it's a manufactured concept to get women to submit. I think real partnership looks nothing like somebody losing their mind, and that's a lot of what this was. But anyway, yeah, so with Deborah, I mean, sometimes our instincts lie. That's, I think, something we need to learn. Sometimes the danger's not in losing the partner, but in keeping the wrong one. Deborah's story is tragic, but it's also illuminating. It shows us what happens when outdated genetic coding meets modern predators, and what happens when a new generation finally rewrites the script with Tara. So this is like, it's a lot, and in that same family. Yeah, thanks for listening and letting me work out my thesis with yet another example. If you want to hear more about Deborah and her very unfortunate time with John, it's called Dirty John. There are so many interviews with them. You can find tons with her and her daughters online on YouTube. So this is, again, such a condensed version of it, just to give you kind of an overview so I could present my theory. But I very much enjoyed the work that the producers did for Dirty John, and I think you should listen to it if you want to get more information. Yeah, that's it. Thanks for watching and listening. If you were watching, I'm sorry. I'm just like chilling in my sweats, and you're meant to just listen to this, really, not watch me. But if you did, hi and bye.
Sweet.